let's talk about what's happening with the FBI because I find this really disturbing. So there was a pro-life dad who was recently arrested in a crazy SWAT-style raid. Now his wife and he are, to a lesser extent, are speaking out. His name is Mark Houck. He's a Catholic pro-life activist from Pennsylvania. He was arrested by the FBI last Friday in front of his wife and 7 children. Here's what happened. He went outside of an abortion clinic. It was a Planned Parenthood clinic in Philadelphia. He was on a public sidewalk, which you're allowed to be. And he had some altercation with this is back in October of 2021, in which he pushed a 72-year-old man outside the clinic after he was verbally harassing Houck's 12-year-old son. So this guy, Mark Houck, got upset that this 72-year-old man was engaging directly with Mark's 12-year-old, and he defended his son, pushed the older man. The man fell, had a scrape, literally just a scrape. Local law enforcement looked into it and said, we're not prosecuting this. This is nothing. This is a small skirmish. It's nothing, and moved on. Then in May, Mark Houck receives a target letter from the DOJ accusing him, saying that he's being investigated by a grand jury for violating the Freedom of Access Clinic Entrances Act, which he did not do. He didn't obstruct any entrance, just had this skirmish. It makes it a federal crime to use force with the intent to injure, intimidate, and interfere with anyone because that person provides reproductive health care. Okay, that's not what happened. But notwithstanding that, they sicked the FBI on him. And when they found out that the DOJ was looking at him, the grand jury had been convened, his lawyer contacted the DOJ and said, we will surrender him. We can work this out. We'll bring him right in. That's what any lawyer would do. And didn't get a response. And next thing they know, his house gets raided with his 7 children watching. His wife spoke to Tucker, I think last night. Here it is.
It was devastating. I mean, you can imagine it's hard to even express the victimization and, how traumatized we all are due to this unnecessary thing that happened to us.
How many FBI agents with guns would you estimate showed up at your house?
It had to have been 20, 25, 30. I mean, we have a large property. My entire front yard, you could barely see it. It was covered with at least 15 big trucks and cars.
How are your children doing, I have to ask?
It's hard to tell. The older ones, we can talk, we can cry. We've had some counseling. We have more counseling to do. And the little ones, they're scared. They're scared. There's a lot of crying.
His lawyer, Ben, saying this is a gross abuse of power meant to intimidate pro-life and other Americans who are speaking out about these divisive issues.
I mean, it is amazing the amounts of resources the DOJ and the FBI will pour into something like this, an altercation that had nothing to do with blocking people from actually going into the clinic, particularly medical professionals. But apparently the FBI and DOJ have very little time to spend on the vast spate of bombings and burnings and defacing of churches, pro-life pregnancy centers. All of that is just, random events that are happening. The rather disparate treatment of various crimes is shocking, coming from Merrick Garland, the DOJ, and the FBI. And again, this is not the fault of we keep saying this, and it's true. It's not the fault of the low-level FBI agents at agencies like the FBI, but the higher ups at these places are extraordinarily political, and they know where their bread is buttered. And this is one of the big problems in general with the executive branch and the way law enforcement is done. We saw this with Barack Obama and the IRS. All that has to happen is that there's sort of a vague guideline given by the people at the very top, and then it's who will rid me of this meddlesome priest? And suddenly you have a bunch of people in the executive branch who are rushing to do that sort of work. There doesn't need to be an explicit order to intimidate people who are pro-life. All you say is that pro-life people everywhere are engaged in some sort of extremist activity. And suddenly you have events like this that suddenly pop up on the radar.
And it comes just as Miranda Devine over at the New York Post issues an exclusive report today about the FBI. Another guy, he's 27 years old, Stephen Friend is his name. And he says he's a whistleblower, 12-year veteran of the FBI and a SWAT team member. And he was just suspended last Monday. Why? He was stripped of his gun and his badge, escorted out of the FBI field office in Daytona Beach, Florida, after complaining to his supervisors because he said he did not want to participate in a SWAT raid that he believed violated FBI policy against a January 6th subject who was accused of misdemeanor charges. He said, by the way, this guy said he was not a Trump supporter. He did not vote for Trump, either one of the last elections. But he thought this was absurd, that they were going to unleash the FBI SWAT team on some January 6th defendant who may or may not have had anything to do with January 6th, accused of misdemeanors, saying, I have an oath to uphold the Constitution. I have a moral objection, and I want to be considered a conscientious objection. The complaint that he filed, the whistleblower complaint with the DOJ Inspector General, was obtained by the New York Post. He says he was removed from active investigations into child sexual exploitation and human trafficking to work on J6 cases sent from D.C. He was told domestic terrorism was a higher priority than child pornography. He said the D.C. field office is manipulating FBI case management protocol, farming out J6 cases to field offices across the country to create the false impression that right-wing domestic violence is a widespread national problem that goes far beyond what happened on J6. He was listed as the lead agent in cases he had not investigated and in which his supervisor had not signed off, all in violation of FBI policy. FBI denies it and says he's got a grievance because he was losing his security clearance and had espoused beliefs which demonstrate questionable judgment and an unwillingness to comply with rules and regs. So this is not, and by the way, 30 FBI agents are now standing up for this guy, saying he was a model agent. So this is a pattern.
Yep. I mean, again, if you look at the history of the FBI, the truth is that it's not particularly shocking that the FBI has now been politicized from the left. I mean, if you go all the way back to the foundations of the FBI in the early 20th century, you saw the FBI was embroiled in controversies surrounding going after communists in the 1920s and communists going in the 1950s. And now you see that they've been essentially weaponized on behalf of the Biden administration to go after the people who Joe Biden has so subtly termed MAGA Republicans. You know, this idea that everyone I disagree with is part of a broader extremist movement is really egregious. And we've seen these sort of whistleblower complaints being made over the past couple of months that the FBI is essentially broadening the scope of J6 investigations to now include anybody and everybody who is tangentially involved in sort of MAGA Republican politics. And we're getting into very risky territory. I mean, the FBI runs up almost routinely on serious Fourth and Fifth Amendment violations. And once they become weaponized on behalf of a political point of view, they rely on the American people's trust. Once that trust is gone, it's not going to be restored by activities like this. It just is going to make the calls for their curtailment significantly louder.
If you're like me, you're growing more and more concerned about the future. The market is all over the place. Inflation is at its highest level in 40 years. Interest rates are skyrocketing and they're not done yet. Market experts not only use terms like recession right now, but economic hurricane and unprecedented. If you want to protect your future, call a precious metals dealer I trust, American Hartford Gold. Now, they can show you how to protect your savings and your retirement accounts by diversifying your portfolio. That's the key, diversify with physical gold and silver. All it takes to get started is a short phone call, and they will have physical gold and silver delivered right to your door or inside your IRA or 401k. And they will keep it simple. This is the highest rated firm in the country with an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau and thousands of satisfied clients. And as an exclusive offer for my fans, if you call them right now, they're going to give you up to $1,500 of free silver and a free safe on qualifying orders. So don't wait. Call them now. It's 866-518-2955. 866-518-2955. Or you can text my name, Megyn, Megyn, to 65532. Okay, so either call 866-518-2955 or text MEGYN to 65532. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.